There's a bunch of new cards from the Spider-Man set, and I absolutely had to talk about them. So Venom Deadly Devourer is 2 of any color, 1 black, 1 green for 4/4 legendary creature symbiote villain. It has Vigilance Menace, and you can pay 3 of any color to exile target creature card from your graveyard. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on target symbiote, where X is the exiled card's toughness. So there are a lot of creatures with insanely high toughness. Example, Tree of Redemption and Tree of Perdition have 13 toughness, which is crazy. Phyrexian Dreadnought is insane because it automatically sacrifices itself, so it's super easy to put into your graveyard. If you've activated him at least 2 times, he will most likely be able to one-shot your opponent. He has Menace, so it's harder for them to block. It also has Vigilance for some reason. It seems kind of like a color pipe break, but I don't mind it too much. It makes it really good for defending yourself after attack, so you get extra value with that. And there's a ton of really strong cards that put creatures right into the graveyard. Like Buried Alive, that puts 3 different creatures in there. Or Entomb, that's 1 mana for 1 creature. So getting your graveyard filled with really high toughness creatures really isn't that hard. So this guy can hit like a truck pretty consistently. Now, Sensational Spider-Man is 1 of any color, 1 white and 1 blue for a 3/3 legendary creature Spider-Human Hero. It has, whenever Sensational Spider-Man attacks, tap target creature defending player controls, and put a stun counter on. Then, you may remove up to 3 stun counters from among all permanents, draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. So first of all, this card attacks really well, because you can always tap in their best threat to make sure that Spider-Man doesn't die from their creatures. If you don't have any big creatures that you want to tap down, you can just immediately remove the counter and draw your card. But there's also a ton of cards that put stun counters. For example, Impede Momentum. It has 1 of any color and 1 blue, tap target creature, put 3 stun counters on it, and then scry 1. So if you cast this before you attack with Spider-Man, you can remove them immediately and draw 3. That's pretty great card advantage, especially that you can remove the counters you want and leave the ones on the creatures that you really don't want to untap, while drawing cards for the creatures you don't mind if they do. There's Freeze in Place that does pretty much the same thing, except you scry 1 extra. And there's Watcher in the Water that enters the battlefield with 9 stun counters on it. That makes it really easy to remove stun counters from this creature, drawing your 3 cards, and then get a 5 mana 9/9 threat that also its last ability can put more stun counters on other permanents. So it turns into this value engine that every turn it can draw you 3 cards and tap and stun an opponent's creature for 3 mana, which is pretty strong. Dog Ock Evil Inventors, 5 of any color, 1 blue and 1 black, for an 8/8 legendary creature human scientist villain. That has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes an 8/8 robot villain artifact creature, in addition to its other types. Dog Ock does a surprising amount of damage. I know it's 7 mana and that's a lot, but once you play him and you have an artifact that doesn't have summoning sickness, you're hitting for 8. And the next turn, you can do it again and attack with this creature, which means you're hitting for 24 damage, which is pretty crazy. And every turn, it just gets more and more value, which could really overwhelm your opponents. Green Goblin Nemesis is 2 of any color, 1 black, 1 red for a 3/3 legendary creature goblin human villain with flying. Whenever you discard a non-land card, put a 1/1 counter on target goblin you control. Whenever you discard a land card, create a tap treasure token. So this is a really good value engine for any self-discard decks. You could go the Madness route and go the route where you play a ton of wheels and you discard a ton of cards, making either this guy completely massive or giving you a ton of mana in your next turn. Again, a really great commander. I think they've nailed it with the power level of these creatures. They're not busted, but they're really interesting and you can really build around them. Now, Grasping Tentacles is 1 of any color, 1 blue, 1 black for a sorcery. Target opponent mills 8 cards. You may put an artifact card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this is a really good mill card. Because if you're playing mill, there's a big chance that you've already milled some artifacts in your opponent's grave. So you can play this and just immediately target their best artifact in the graveyard and put it into play while milling 8 cards of your opponent's. It is kind of situational because sometimes you'll have games where you're not playing against any big artifact decks, so you can whiff with this, which could be really sad. But milling 8, you'll probably find an artifact in there and put into play. Pumpkin Bombs is 1 of any color, 1 red for an artifact that has tap, discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards, then put a fuse counter on this artifact. It deals damage equal to the number of fuse counters on it to target opponent. They can gain control of that artifact. So this is a really fun card that'll bounce everywhere while giving people card advantage and some burst. I don't think it's crazy competitive, but there's a lot of cards that care about giving stuff to your opponents. This is one that does that. You can also have deals with your opponent where you give it to them, but you make them promise that they give it back. Sure, you'll take some damage, but the card advantage is really worth it. It works well with Green Goblin Nemesis because you discard cards, but you also draw more cards than you discard, giving you card advantage. So this is just a really fun card. So I think they did a really good job with these cards. They're all really unique commanders or really fun cards that aren't busted, but strong enough to definitely see play and make some really cool decks. So that's everything I had to say about these awesome cards. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.